Good morning, everybody. It's great to see such a big crowd here this morning. Some of you will remember, maybe back almost 4 years ago now, here in Carrick-on-Shannon, we met as organising a fairly informal seminar, expecting maybe 30 or 40 people to come that evening. Instead, over 130 people came that night, and I think that really sent it home to us that the message of social farming was going out, and people had great interest in trying to move it on and to do some development work in that regard. So it's 4 years later, but it's great to be back and say we do have a project. We are doing things now to implement and develop social farming in Ireland and on the island of Ireland. My purpose here this morning is to give an overview of the social farming across borders. I refer to it as SoFAB throughout the presentation, the acronym for the project. I'll just give you the framework and context for how the project works, and then Paul Henry, the project coordinator, will talk about specific areas of activity that have been going on, and Aideen Walsh, the project development worker, will talk about the building of evidence in relation to the project that's going on in the project to advance the development of social farming. Just to give you a picture of how the programme is coordinated and managed. The project is led by University College Dublin as lead partner, with Queen's University Belfast and Leitrim Development Company as the partners to the project. The project is managed through a management committee that meets on a 2-monthly basis, and that comprises the project partners, but also representation from DARD, Northern Ireland, the Colleges of Agriculture, Food and Rural Environment in Northern Ireland, and the Special EU Programmes body that are our funder are also a very useful member on the project management committee. In addition to the management and the day-to-day management of the project, we also have built in an advisory committee role to bring in knowledge and awareness from other sectors, but also from other regions where social farming may be at a different stage of development. The Project Advisory Committee would also involve the project partners, representatives from the SoFAB network that we'll be talking a little bit about this morning, representatives from the health services, that would be the HSE and the health trusts in Northern Ireland. Sorry now for the acronyms, but I wouldn't fit all the names on the slide. CFWM is Care Farming West Midlands. We have Richard Nicholl, which is here this morning, and Philip Lane, who will be speaking later on, is also part of that network of Care Farming West Midlands. Care Farming UK, the national network organisation in the UK, are also a member of the advisory committee, as are Care Farming Scotland. Okay. And most of you will know the SoFAB team and the staff team involved in this project. Paul Henry, their project coordinator, who will be speaking after myself. Aideen Walsh is the project development worker, who will be next up. And a lot of you will speak to Helen Doherty on the phone or via email, but you might know what she looks like. Well, they're putting up a picture of Helen Doherty, so you'll be able to introduce yourselves to her today. So that's our team. We are very grateful on this project because there was, for a good number of years, we were trying to find a means to resource the development of social farming in Ireland. And because of the very nature of social farming, that it comes under so many remits of maybe health, social care, farming, it's very hard to get a sector or an area, and maybe they shouldn't, take ownership of it. But for the Interreg programme actually addresses that issue. They pick up gaps of where worthwhile projects are not able to fit in very easily into programmes, and they can provide the resources for that. So it has worked really well for us. It's funded under the Interreg 4A current programme's Priority 2, which is Cooperation for a More Sustainable Cross-Border Region. The theme it comes under is rural development, and the funding is provided from the European Regional Development Fund, but with match funding from the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development in Northern Ireland and the Department of Environment, Community and Local Government. And that funding programme from the Interreg programme is managed by the Special European Union Programmes body, and as I said, they are a very useful member of our management committee. So it has been pivotal in terms of helping us to develop this whole area. The project runs, Jim has already alluded to that we're 20 months into the project. The project runs from October 2011 and finishes in September 2014, so we're at an advanced stage of the project at this stage. This is just showing you the area that is covered by the project. It's Interreg 4A, so on the island of Ireland that involves all of Northern Ireland and the border counties in the Republic. We had hoped that Western Scotland would have been part of the project, but they weren't able to join us in the end. But we have the links ongoing through the Care Farming Scotland network. Just to say, in terms of the map of there's 12 counties involved. In terms of where the pilot project takes place, the part we ensured was that there was at least one pilot farm in every health authority area. There's a number in some areas, obviously, and there's virtually one in every county. The only exclusion, unfortunately, is Sligo, but in every other county there are at least one social farm pilot operating. Just to give you a little bit of context on the origins of this project, I mean, I've alluded to the fact, and Jim has, in terms of it's been many years in gestation, really. There was a couple of very important projects and work that happened in recent years that have led to and have informed the thinking behind this project. A very important project was the Social Services and Multifunctional Farms. That was the SoFAB project, and that finished in 2008. And that provided a baseline of activity and describing activity in 7 countries in Europe, including the island of Ireland. But a very important part of that project was that it involved participative policy making. It was about bringing people, the whole range of stakeholders together to work together on proposing a way forward for social farming. And out of that project came an informal network called the Social Farming Community of Practice. And it was people who had participated in so far, continued that work, and that have been very important in terms of keeping the push to develop this project. And it was another one of the European Cost Action Networks. It was a network across Europe and that ran from 2006 to 2010, and that was very important in terms of developing some of the linkages into Northern Ireland as well. All of this work, I mean, there's a whole raft of recommendations from this work, but I'm going to pick out some of the key areas that have informed this project. Across Europe, but we would say specifically, or particularly in Ireland, there is definitely a need to improve knowledge in the local context in terms of social farming and how it operates, and to develop that evidence of social farming. It's very important to some of the partners involved, and it informs and teaches us all about how to do this and how to do it better as we go along. It was also been identified by the very nature of social farming and the fact that it cuts across so many different arenas and areas of activity that there is a real need to bring people together and to develop cross-sectoral networks where people can learn together and co-produce knowledge in relation to social farming that reflects those backgrounds in terms of how we do it. Because as Jim said earlier, it's not simply about farming, it's not simply about a traditional standard or traditional style of social service provision. It's a much richer and I suppose focused very much on developing relationships and networks between people and relating to each other in terms of how we can develop the service in a positive and good way. So I suppose we had all that background going on for a number of years, and a lot of preparatory work had been put in place, and we took on board that learning, obviously, over the years in terms of how we designed the SoFAB project. There's 4 specific objectives in relation to the project. The first one is that need and necessity to establish a network so that people can work together and learn from each other and learn to accommodate others' requirements and how we can shape and build this in a practical way, in a way that works for people, in a way that doesn't get strangled by too much regulation from either side, but rather that we build social farming with the intention of keeping it a normal, natural, ordinary approach to including people in communities. There's also, one of the clear objectives is to identify and disseminate best practices in the delivery of social farming services, and that's very much focused around the network activity, but also the pilots in terms of developing them, assessing them, evaluating how they've worked and what have been the positive outcomes from that work. The third objective is also to strengthen the capacity of farm households and social services in terms of how to link and network, because we've heard from many farmers and people from social services who love the idea but don't know how to match it up. There's an awful lot of work for an individual situation to do that. So one of the objectives of the project was to try and address those issues and to work out that detail so that it may be of use going into the future. And crucially, also to raise public awareness and to generate that debate about social farming and supporting it and recognising it and helping it to develop. And that's a major focus of the project. Just maybe just a quick slide just to mention, I suppose, about the approach of this project. If people who've been involved in social inclusion initiatives, we often try to maybe artificially create situations where you can try and promote social inclusion and involving people in community. With the social farming approach, you are taking something that's already embedded within community. One thing we have in this country is an abundance of family farms. And the social farming approach is trying to invite and organise that and say you may come into that it's an opportunity for being included in society that already exists. And the gentlemen here from Vincent Coyle's farm are recognising themselves on the photograph. This is a lovely photograph of Vincent's shorthorn cow and people down there. Yeah. 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 So I'm going to skip on. There'll be more photographs later. Yeah. That's it. That's from Summerhill. We'll be hearing more about yourselves and the work going on down in Summerhill later on in the morning. So how is the social farming across borders project addressing those outlined objectives? There's a couple of core strands to development of the project. One of the key areas has been around awareness raising, and we invested a lot of time for the first year of the project in terms of doing this work, because there was a lot of promotion and recognition work needed to get this whole concept of social farming, make people aware of it, and to even internalise the idea that how it can work. So that has been a major focus. That's the photograph of the two ministers, Minister O'Neill from Northern Ireland and Minister O'Dowd from the Republic, meeting and shaking hands at the launch of the project back in September. A lot of the work around the awareness raising, we have ran a whole series of information seminars last year in terms of generating awareness. As I said earlier, the need for a network is crucially important. That whole work of awareness raising was to build interest and to encourage participation in the network, and also to make farmers aware of what was happening and that there was a pilot project going to be available, and to attract interest for that. As we move through the project now, the focus is shifting a bit from awareness raising. I think it's evidenced by this morning. There's such a great crowd of people here that the message is getting out and people are aware of the social farming concept and the work of the project. As we move on now, it will move more towards the documentation process and the learning that's been recorded already and going on over the next couple of months, and disseminating that information and trying to inform and influence public policy will shift the focus as we go on through the project. As we said, the network and the development of the network is a very important part of the project. Paul is going to talk specifically in regard to the activities that have been happening in terms of building that network. But we really see that as a crucial element of the project, and we hope it will be one of the living legacies of the project, that this network of people, and very good people, have come together to discuss this issue and work together on social farming, that we hope that this will go on after the project has finished its funding and will continue to work together. The network is very important in terms of informing developments that have already happened, in terms of preparing for pilots and areas of work that needs to be attended to and addressed. And we got a lot of insights and learning from that have informed how we have approached preparing the pilots. An ongoing work will be in terms of the outputs. There's quite a few tangible documents or outputs coming out of the project, and the network will be validating and working alongside the project in regards to that. A core part, and you're going to hear a lot more about it this morning, is the pilot element of the project. I'll just give you some of the headline numbers on it. Paul will talk about the process of getting there, and we have been through a pretty intensive 9 months preparation, believe it or not, to get the pilots up and running. Most pilots have started, but I'll leave Paul to discuss where things are at with the pilots. But just to say, there are 20 pilot farms across the region, 10 in the Republic and 10 in Northern Ireland. There are 60 people going out to farms as part of those pilots and trying out the social farming to see what they think of it. And the engagement, the extent of the pilot is over 30 days over the period. This will take us up to where the active piece of the project up to this point. The next stage, in addition, we have been training the pilot farmers as we've gone along. We are also going to be offering training both to other farmers and social care personnel in terms of learning about social farming. We're going to take the training programme that has been developed with the pilot farmers and look at that and discuss with the network in terms of how we will design the training. But that will be happening in the next months. That will be rolled out. And then I have a blank report here. It's not really quite blank, but the next stage of the project will be very much also about recording information, analysing how things are working, bringing together the learning that is happening in this project and making sure that, that we are able to share this with people after the project. So I'm going to finish on this slide just to let you know about the planned outcomes of the project. A key outcome that we hope, and it seems to be indicated by the work so far, that good relationships will be established between the different stakeholders involved in this work, both across the network and the pilot. We will have a whole range of information. We will have demonstrated social farming on farms in association with services, and we will be documenting that evidence. And we will be also preparing a cost-benefit analysis of how that work has transpired. We will have 20 trained and practising social farmers by the time this project is complete. There will be 60 people who have availed of social farming. There will be a farm guidance handbook prepared and available as part of the work. We will also have trained 60 other people in terms of a mix of farmers and people from services in terms of how this will work. There will be a guide to the design of those training programmes that will be available for use. And we will be making, based on all of the work, we will be making recommendations for the future development policy making. And Jim referred to the next conference, the conference in August 2014, which the work going towards that and that event itself will be very important in that development. Okay, so that's the overview and structure of the programme. I'm going to hand over now to Paul Henry, who will talk about specific activities that are going on, and Aideen will follow Paul then. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the day, and I look forward to talking to you later.